You know, most people think the reason they aren't wealthy yet is because they missed some secret. They believe someone else was smarter, faster, or luckier. They assume wealth belongs to a different class of people, a different kind of mind, a different life path. Benjamin Graham didn't believe any of that. He believed something far more uncomfortable. He believed that most people stay poor not because they can't win, but because they quit before the game actually starts. Benjamin Graham was born in 1894, long before social media, financial influences, or endless opinions about money. His family was not wealthy. In fact, after his father died, their finances collapsed so badly that survival became the priority. There was no safety net, no backup plan, just discipline, learning, and restraint. That experience shaped the way he saw money for the rest of his life. Graham understood something early that most people never accept. Building wealth feels pointless before it feels powerful. And the most dangerous moment in personal finance is when effort produces almost no visible reward. That's where most people give up. Imagine saving month after month while your life doesn't seem to change. No luxury, no applause, no visible upgrade. Just numbers slowly increasing on a statement that doesn't excite anyone. Benjamin Graham would say that this phase isn't broken, it's necessary. Early progress in finance is quiet, painfully quiet. You cut back, you delay gratification, you skip things others enjoy, and after months or even years of effort you still feel financially fragile. This is the stage where people say, "What's the point?" Graham warned that this question destroys more futures than any market crash ever could. Because the math of wealth doesn't work in straight lines. It works in curves. At first the curve looks flat, so flat that it feels like nothing is happening at all. But nothing happening is an illusion. Benjamin Graham taught that money behaves differently once it reaches a certain level. Not because the number itself is magical, but because the relationship changes. Below that level, your effort does all the work. Above it, your money finally starts to help. Before that moment, saving feels heavy. After it, saving feels strategic. Most people never experience this shift because they stop too early. Graham saw this pattern again and again. Smart people, hard workers, decent incomes, all sabotaged by impatience. They expected momentum before momentum was mathematically possible. What makes this especially cruel is that the hardest phase comes first, when motivation is lowest and temptation is highest. Benjamin Graham believed this is where character matters more than intelligence. He didn't see investing as a test of brilliance. He saw it as a test of emotional control. You see others spending freely. You watch lifestyles that look better than yours, and your brain quietly whispers that you're falling behind. But Graham would argue that many of those people are running faster on a treadmill that never moves. Higher income, higher spending, same position. Wealth to Graham wasn't about speed. It was about direction. He believed the most important skill in personal finance is the ability to endure boredom without panicking, because boredom is the entrance fee to compounding. In the early years, saving money feels insulting. You sacrifice real comfort for numbers that don't yet feel real. And this is where the identity shift begins. At first, you see yourself as someone trying to save money. Later, if you persist long enough, you become someone who does save money. That identity change is everything. Benjamin Graham emphasized that psychology changes before numbers explode. Confidence appears before returns accelerate. Once you prove to yourself that you can live below your means, the game changes. You stop feeling fragile. You stop feeling desperate. And desperation is the enemy of good decisions. Graham warned that people make their worst financial mistakes when they feel pressure to catch up, pressure to impress, pressure to prove, pressure to feel successful now. That pressure pushes people into speculation, debt, and complexity. the very things Graham spent his life warning against. He believed complexity exists because it sells. Simplicity exists because it works. The market doesn't reward excitement. It rewards patience. Graham's philosophy wasn't glamorous. No flashy predictions. No shortcuts. Just arithmetic and behavior repeating over time. He often said that investing success is not about beating others, but about controlling yourself. Most people think risk comes from the market. Graham believed risk comes from ignorance and emotion. When people don't understand what they own, fear controls them. When fear controls them, they sell at the wrong time. And when they sell at the wrong time, they lock in failure. This is why Graham emphasized margin of safety, not just financially, but psychologically. A financial cushion does more than protect money. It protects judgment. Without that cushion, every setback feels like a crisis. Every downturn feels personal, and every decision becomes rushed. Graham saw wealth not as excess, but as insulation from panic, and panic is expensive. The tragedy is that the moment right before progress accelerates is the moment most people abandon the plan. They assume slow growth means the strategy is wrong. In reality, slow growth means the strategy is still warming up. Graham understood compounding deeply, but he understood human weakness even more. He knew people struggle with waiting. They struggle with seeing others appear to win faster. They struggle with accepting that the early phase offers no applause. But he also knew that those who endure this phase quietly separate themselves from the crowd, because once capital exists, opportunity appears. Not hype, not promises. Real opportunity. When you have capital, you can wait. When you can wait, you can choose. When you can choose, you stop being forced. That's freedom. Benjamin Graham didn't believe wealth was about luxury. He believed it was about independence. The ability to say no. The ability to walk away. The ability to remain calm when others panic. This calm is purchased slowly, through discipline that feels unrewarded for far too long. Most people never buy it. They sell their future to feel better today, and that is the real divide. Not intelligence, not income, not talent, but the willingness to suffer quietly before the rewards become visible. Graham believed that once you cross a certain internal threshold, money stops being something you chase and starts becoming something you manage. And everything changes after that. And once that shift happens, something subtle but powerful begins to take place. Decisions slow down, urgency fades. The need to react disappears. Benjamin Graham believed this was the moment when people stopped gambling with their future and started behaving like owners instead of speculators. Ownership changes the way the mind works. When money is scarce, every choice feels urgent. Every opportunity feels like the last chance. Every risk feels justified because desperation convinces people that doing nothing is worse than doing something reckless. Graham saw this pattern destroy intelligent people over and over again. He watched them abandon solid plans for exciting ones. He watched them trade patience for prediction. He watched them confuse activity with progress. Graham argued that the market is a device for transferring money from the impatient to the patient. Not because the patient are smarter, but because they are calmer. This calmness doesn't come naturally. It is built slowly, through repetition, through restraint, through resisting the urge to prove something to anyone. One of Graham's most important observations was that most financial pain is self-inflicted, not caused by recessions, not caused by crashes, but caused by decisions made under emotional pressure. People sell when fear peaks. They buy when excitement peaks. They follow crowds because crowds feel safe. But crowds are usually wrong at the extremes. Graham taught that the market exists to serve you, not instruct you. Prices move not because value changes, but because emotions do. Fear and greed swing prices far away from reality, creating opportunities for those who are willing to wait. Waiting, however, feels uncomfortable. It feels passive. It feels like missing out. And missing out is one of the most powerful psychological forces on earth. People would rather lose money than feel left behind. This is why Graham believed envy is more dangerous than ignorance. Ignorance can be corrected. Envy blinds. The moment you start measuring your progress against others, your strategy weakens. You begin taking risks you never planned to take. You begin spending money you never intended to spend. You begin abandoning timelines that were working perfectly well. Graham believed that comparison is the fastest way to destroy a sound financial plan. Because you never see the full picture. You see lifestyles, not balance sheets. You see purchases, not debt. You see outcomes, not risks taken. And the market eventually punishes those shortcuts. Graham lived through the Great Depression. He watched fortunes disappear overnight. He watched leverage turn success into ruin. He watched confidence collapse into panic. Those experiences cemented his belief that safety matters more than speed. He warned repeatedly that borrowing to invest magnifies outcomes in both directions. It feels brilliant when prices rise and catastrophic when they fall. Leverage removes the margin for error, and markets always find error. Graham believed that surviving matters more than winning big, because survival allows compounding to work. Failure resets the clock. Getting rich only needs to happen once. Going broke can happen many times, and every restart costs time, the one resource compounding cannot replace. He believed that a conservative approach was not weakness but wisdom, that refusing leverage wasn't fear but arithmetic. Time rewards consistency, not courage. Another idea Graham emphasized was that income alone does not create wealth. Behavior does. People with modest earnings who save consistently often surpass high earners who inflate their lifestyles. Money flows toward discipline, not status. A person who controls spending controls their future. A person who doesn't is controlled by it. Graham saw spending as a silent tax on compounding. Every dollar spent today is not just gone. It's gone forever with all the growth it could have produced. This is why he believed that the most powerful financial habit is simply underspending income year after year, not occasionally, not temporarily, consistently. It sounds too simple. That's why people ignore it. They want sophistication. They want optimization. They want complexity. But complexity benefits sellers, not investors. Graham warned that the more complicated a financial product is, the more likely it exists to enrich the person selling it rather than the person buying it. Simplicity scales. Complexity obscures. This philosophy extended beyond investing into life itself. Graham believed that personal growth and earning power mattered deeply. Saving alone was not enough. One must also increase their value. He believed the safest way to earn more is to deserve more. That meant learning continuously, reading constantly, improving skills, becoming reliable, becoming useful. Graham observed that people who rise steadily over a lifetime are not always the most brilliant. They are often the most consistent learners. They accumulate knowledge the same way they accumulate money, gradually. Every day slightly better than the last. He believed reading was non-negotiable, not for entertainment but for perspective. Markets change, industries evolve, skills become obsolete. Learning protects relevance. Without learning, income stagnates. Without income growth, saving stagnates. Without saving, compounding never accelerates. Everything connects. Another concept Graham emphasized was knowing your limits. He called this staying within your circle of competence. Investing in things you don't understand is not bold, it's reckless. People overestimate their knowledge constantly. They mistake familiarity for understanding. They chase trends without grasping fundamentals. Graham believed ignorance combined with confidence is the most dangerous combination in finance. He taught that admitting what you don't know is a strength. Avoiding areas outside your understanding protects capital. Capital preserved has the chance to grow. Expanding competence should be slow and deliberate. Learn first, observe, then act. Most people reverse this order. They act first, learn through loss, and call it experience. Graham saw this as unnecessary tuition. As capital grows, opportunities change. Options appear that were invisible before. The ability to partner, to invest meaningfully, to wait for better conditions, all emerge from having reserves. Capital creates leverage of a different kind, leverage over time and choice. Those without capital are forced to accept terms. Those with capital can negotiate or walk away. This is why Graham believed the goal was never luxury, but autonomy. Financial independence is the power to say no without fear. Fear is what keeps people trapped. Fear of bills, fear of emergencies, fear of unemployment, fear of missing out. Capital absorbs fear. As wealth builds, Graham warned against a new danger: lifestyle inflation. The urge to convert progress into consumption too early. Those who succeed long-term keep expenses relatively flat while income grows. This gap is where compounding accelerates. Spending growth kills momentum. Discipline preserves it. Graham also warned against constant activity. Trading feels productive but often destroys value. Taxes, fees, and emotional decisions interrupt compounding. The best returns, he believed, often come from inactivity. Holding good investments quietly, while others panic or speculate, creates advantage. The hardest skill is not knowing what to buy, but knowing when to do nothing. Graham understood that people crave action because action feels like control. But true control comes from preparation and patience, not movement. Markets reward those who wait while others react. And waiting is boring. But boring works. Boring works because it removes ego from the equation. Benjamin Graham believed ego is the silent killer of long-term success. The need to be right. The need to be admired. The need to look smart. Markets punish all of it eventually. He taught that humility is a financial asset. Knowing that you don't know the future, accepting uncertainty, preparing instead of predicting. This is why Graham rejected forecasting as a core strategy. He didn't believe anyone could consistently predict short-term market movements, and he believed pretending otherwise was dangerous. What mattered was valuation, discipline, and margin of safety. The future will always surprise you. The question is whether those surprises destroy you or benefit you. Prepared people survive surprises. Unprepared people become victims of them. Graham believed that money exists to give you time. Time to think. Time to wait. Time to choose carefully. When you don't have money, everything is rushed. Decisions are made under pressure. Pressure leads to mistakes. Mistakes compound negatively. Negative compounding is just as powerful as positive compounding. It works faster too. Debt compounds stress. Poor habits compound regret. Bad decisions compound limitation. This is why Graham emphasized avoiding stupidity over seeking brilliance. You don't need to be exceptional to succeed. You need to avoid obvious mistakes consistently. Spend less than you earn. Save regularly. Avoid high-interest debt. Don't speculate with money you can't afford to lose. Don't chase what you don't understand. Don't let emotions dictate decisions. These principles sound old-fashioned because they are, and they work precisely because they are boring and unfashionable. Graham believed that success comes from being right quietly, not loudly. He often pointed out that financial news exists to stimulate emotion, not wisdom. Headlines are designed to provoke fear or excitement because calm doesn't generate attention. If you let headlines control your behavior, your money will always be someone else's opportunity. Turning off noise is one of the most profitable decisions an investor can make. Graham believed that independence begins internally before it appears externally. The ability to think independently, act independently, and wait independently separates long-term winners from everyone else. Most people want confirmation. Few people want truth. Confirmation feels safe. Truth often feels uncomfortable. The truth is that wealth building is slow at first. Unfairly slow, so slow that it feels broken. But Graham insisted that this phase is the filter. It removes those unwilling to delay gratification. He believed that anyone who survives this phase with discipline intact will eventually reach a point where momentum becomes visible, not overnight, not suddenly, but steadily. At that point, money begins contributing meaningfully. Returns feel real, progress becomes tangible, confidence grows. And with confidence comes patience. This patience changes everything. You stop forcing outcomes. You stop reacting emotionally. You stop making decisions to impress others. You begin acting like an owner of your future instead of a consumer of the present. Graham believed that this shift is irreversible once fully internalized. Once someone truly understands delayed gratification, they rarely go back, because freedom tastes better than impulse. As wealth grows, Graham warned against forgetting why you started. Money is a tool, not the destination. The destination is autonomy, the ability to live life on your own terms. Wealth without control is just another form of dependency. True success is the ability to walk away from bad deals, bad jobs, bad relationships, and bad environments without panic. Money enables choice. Choice enables dignity. Graham believed dignity was the ultimate dividend. He also believed that wealth should make you calmer, not louder, safer, not flashier, more thoughtful, not more reckless. If money amplifies anxiety, something is wrong. The final lesson Graham left behind is perhaps the hardest to accept. There is no dramatic moment when you feel done. Wealth builds quietly. Freedom arrives subtly. One day you simply realize that emergencies no longer terrify you. That bad months don't break you. That patience has replaced urgency. That realization doesn't come from luck. It comes from years of doing the same, unexciting things repeatedly. While others chased excitement, Benjamin Graham didn't promise riches. He promised probabilities. If you behave rationally long enough, outcomes tilt in your favor. Not guaranteed, not fast, but reliable. Most people fail not because the path is hidden, but because the path is boring. They quit during the silence. They abandon discipline during the waiting. They trade certainty for stimulation. And then they wonder why nothing changes. Graham's philosophy demands restraint in a world addicted to speed. It demands humility in a culture obsessed with confidence. It demands patience when everything around you screams for action. But those who accept these demands gain something rare: control over their time, control over their decisions, control over their future. And that is the real return on investment. Not money itself, but the life it allows you to live. The arithmetic has not changed. The psychology has not changed. The only question left is whether you will do what most people won't. Endure the flat part of the curve long enough to reach the slope. Because once you do, nothing looks the same again.